Well, Saudi Arabia's war against Yemen rages on as the Yemeni army launches retaliatory attacks in response to the kingdom's aggression. Casualties were reported after Saudi jets bombed a market in the city of Hudaydah. Warplanes also carried out airstrikes on the provinces of Marib and Hajjah. In response, Ansarullah fighters and allied army units fired a rocket at a Saudi warship and destroyed it off the coast of Taiz. Reports say Yemeni forces also killed a number of Saudi troops in an attack on a military base in Jazan. Over 7,300 Yemenis have been killed in the Saudi military invasion, which began on March the 26th. Scores of Saudi forces were also killed in the Yemenis' retaliatory attacks. To discuss this story further, we're joined from Brisbane by Max Igan. He's a radio host and political commentator. Good to see you, Max, here on PressTV. Well, we know about a UN-brokered ceasefire, which never in practice came into effect. We know about all these casualties. 7,300 Yemenis have been killed in the Saudi military invasion. We also know about the damage to the infrastructure. We know that there were talks in Geneva. And we know that there are more talks on January the 14th. What is the role of the UN when it can't stop the Saudis from this military invasion of the poorest Arab country?
Well, the UN is a puppet show and it should be open for all to see. Just in this regard, look what's happening in Yemen. It's got to be understood that, like you say, this is one of the poorest, if not the poorest nation in the region. And it should be well obvious to everybody that the Saudis do not want peace in this. It's not about establishing peace. It doesn't even seem to be about establishing any type of government in the area. It just seems to be about continuing the conflict, continuing to bomb the Yemenis into oblivion and continuing to pour weapons and money into the area. I mean, when you look at it, it's very, very profitable for the bankers to keep these wars going, and that's who's running the whole thing, and that's what it's about. The UN is a joke. It's a puppet show. It should be seen by everybody that's what it is. I mean, just look at the global situation. The UN hasn't fixed anything. In fact, it just has helped it get worse. So, yeah, we've got to see this organisation for what it is. It's a toothless tiger that is controlled by the West. It gives people the concept that there is a body there which may make a difference, but really it just glosses over everything and provides a smokescreen for the West to continue its actions.
Well, there were reports that the military equipment that the Saudis are using in this war against Yemen were in fact purchased from the UK and the United States. The United States itself, Saudi Arabia has been the biggest buyer of arms from the United States in the past 4 years. What is the role of these countries when it comes to the war against Yemen?
Well, it isn't just against Yemen, you know, all of the military might that's been poured into the Saudi country. I mean, you can almost see the war in Yemen as a little bit of excuse to keep pouring military aid in there, which isn't just being used in Yemen. It's being funneled over into Syria. These guys are known to be supporting ISIS and supporting this whole fake war on terror in the region. You know, the Saudi regime is an obscene regime. It's an affront to all that it means to be human. It is massively financed by the West, and it's used to create instability in the area. It's joined at the hip with Israel these days anyway. So it's all about supporting Western foreign policy. But I think the Saudis will end up suffering in the end. They'll get hung out to dry the way everybody else that the US touches does and the way everybody else that England touches does. But it should be seen that this is all being funneled in there by the West, by the United States. That's who's pouring all the arms and the weapons in there. And these arms and weapons are ending up all over the Middle East, and it isn't just going into Yemen.
Well, we're hearing in the Western media all this news about Muslim barbaric people, the terrorists, the extremists, they're at war with one another. When is the West's real face is going to come out of all this and people are going to start realising, well, it's the West that's in fact instigating all this chaos in the Muslim world?
Look, I think that people in the West are beginning to realise that the problem is that they're just not getting any truth from their media. That's the real problem that we face in the West here, is getting the information to people. You know, the best we can do is independent news services and independent websites and shows like what you're doing here. But the Western media is hugely complicit in promoting these war crimes and continuing this situation. That's the real problem that we face. But I think underneath that, you know, there's a groundswell of people who know that things are terribly, terribly wrong. Some of the people I've been speaking to that I wouldn't even expect to realise what's going on in the water, now coming to me and asking me questions saying, what can we do about this? So I think we are going to see a huge groundswell come out of the West soon. The people in the West are beginning to realise that they don't have a choice. We need to rein our out-of-control government back under control and inject a little bit of sanity into this situation. Now, there is an incredible amount of Islamophobia that's being promoted in the West, but again, underneath that, there are a lot of good people who don't see it that way, who see that this is contrived, and I think a lot of the Islamophobia that we're seeing is stuff that's being manufactured for the television just to make it seem like this is what the way it is. But, you know, I really don't think it is. I think people are waking up because they're being forced to.
Max, well, you're a radio host. Your job is to raise awareness. Good luck with that. Max Igan, radio host and political commentator, joining us via Skype from Brisbane.